All right, guys, last video here in Bali before I depart for the US for the first time in 7 months. We'll talk more on that later. I want to get right into this video. So guys, you want to know something sort of funny, or well, maybe something not so funny. When many people hear the word prison, they picture sort of the concrete walls, the steel bars, the cells, the locked doors, gangbangers. Not a great life, right? Something sort of obvious, though, that I think we all have sort of a similar image in our heads, right? It's something you'd immediately recognize. But that's not the most dangerous prison. You might think it is, but it's not. The most dangerous prison is the one you build for yourself. Why? Well, because it doesn't look like a prison. And even worse yet, guys, many of you don't realize you're in it. Sometimes it looks like success. It looks like the house that you worked to get for 20 years. The career that everybody else told you to chase, not you. The marriage, the routine, the responsibilities, the quote-unquote respectable life. And from the outside, guys, outside looking in, everything looks fine. It might even be rather impressive. A lot of people are going to look at you and think, damn, this dude has shit together. And yet, guys, every morning you wake up and you have this feeling that you can't quite explain. It's not really a sadness, it's certainly not depression, and it might not even be unhappiness. But yet, something just feels sort of off. Like you're wearing this suit, suit that used to fit you perfectly, but now it's too tight. And here's that uncomfortable truth that I give you in every video, but in this one, I'm going to give it to you earlier. The life that got you here, where you are now, may not be the life that takes you where you're supposed to go next. Look, fellas, today I want to talk about something that almost no men discuss or really don't say out loud honestly. What happens when your own success becomes the very thing that's holding you back? As I said in the last video, a lot of men think that failure is somehow dangerous. Well, failure in and of itself is not dangerous unless you went like off a cliff, landed on the rocks. That'd be dangerous. It'd be deadly. But failure is one thing. It is obvious. Failure will get your attention. Failure gives you critical feedback. That's if you're willing to listen to it and pay attention. Success, on the other hand, sort of sneaks up on you many times because success creates inertia. And inertia is powerful. Momentum, as I've said 1,000 times, is powerful. So look, when you guys are like 25 years old, changing direction isn't all that hard. I think it's something we've all done. You can move. You can start over. You can take risks and you can sort of experiment. You can fuck things up, right? You can rebuild and then start over. But by 45, 40, 45, 50, everything seems to get a bit heavier and certainly a little bit harder. The mortgage is going to get heavier, guys. The career gets heavier. The business, that gets heavier. Your obligations get heavier. And worse, guys, well, it could be better, but the expectation gets heavier. Everything gains a little more weight. Maybe even you. We've all been there, right? But here's the thing, guys. Here's the thing. Momentum doesn't really give a shit whether you're heading, going in the right direction. Momentum has one goal. It only wants to keep you moving. And that's why so many men spend decades succeeding at something they secretly really don't want anymore. Succeeding sort of being in quotes there. Because they're moving too fast, too quickly to stop and ask themselves that uncomfortable question. Is this something I still want? Or have I ever even wanted this, right? And that's sort of a scary, even terrifying question for many men. Because guys, if the answer is a no, it's a vehement no, now you've got a decision to make, brother, and it won't be an easy one. Look, guys, here's something I've noticed. The men who suffer most from this aren't usually sort of weak men. They're not feeble, but they're competent men. A lot of them, very highly competent men. And that can be the curse. Now, let me explain. If you want a deeper dive on this, I'd recommend you read the book, Aaron Clary's book called The Curse of the High IQ. I'll link it below. It's a good read and it kind of expands on this so you have a better understanding. But anyways, guys, see, Competent men can tolerate damn near anything. They can endure, right? They can adapt. They can carry the weight. They carry their end of the log, as Goggins says, right? These guys, competent men, they solve problems. They can push through. That is why, they've achieved success in the first place. These are not qualities that are, go without saying or that are useless. They're core competencies, as they said. But there's this dark side to competence, right? It's a sneaky, sinister side, guys, that you may not see. So you've become so good. You've become so competent at handling things that you never stop to ask whether you should be handling them at all in the first place, right? You keep carrying, you keep enduring, you keep pushing, and you keep performing. And meanwhile, guys, the years go by, possibly even decades. And then one day you might realize something. You spent a decade or more surviving a life you should have redesigned a long time ago. So, as I said before, weak men quit too early. They always fucking do, right? Strong men sometimes stay too long, and that's the problem, right? Stubbornness and perseverance become a hindrance in this case and not sort of a helper. And that hits differently because a lot of men watching my videos pride themselves on endurance, strength. Hell, I know I fucking do, guys. Never quitting, sort of quote unquote pushing through or sort of manning up, getting through things. But sometimes what looks like strength is sort of fear, just wearing a better disguise. Sometimes I'm staying committed. What that really means is I'm afraid to admit what I'm doing no longer works, may never have. And that's a hard pill to swallow, guys, but it's one that you must. And here's where a lot of guys are going to sort of quietly lose themselves. They're going to lose track, lose focus. They stop creating. And they start maintaining, as I said in my previous video, this one here, right? Think about it, guys. Think about it for a second. At 25, 20, 25, whatever it is, you're building. Even at 30, 35, you're still building. But then somewhere, say 40, 45, 50, men become these sort of caretakers. Caretakers of businesses, their job. Caretakers of marriages. Caretakers of homes. Caretakers of obligations. Caretakers of expectations. And caretakers of everybody else's needs. And then before most men even realize it, their entire life becomes maintenance. Again, as I said in the last video. They wake up, right? They handle problems. They pay the bills. They answer emails. They manage responsibilities. Wash, rinse, and repeat. And look, guys, if you're not careful, if you're not paying attention, years, possibly even decades, are going to disappear. I was sitting here in Bali, sort of recently started putting some thought into this. I put some deep thinking into this. You see people come here searching for this quote unquote sort of freedom. And look, some guys are going to find it. Some people will find that sort of freedom. But a lot of them, I'd say many of them, don't. Because freedom, again, as I said in the last video, isn't based on geography. Freedom isn't the villa. It isn't the palm trees. Although, guys, I love palm trees, and it's, that's freedom to me. But that aside, freedom isn't moving to Thailand. It isn't moving to Colombia, Bali, Mexico, or wherever the hell sort of social media tells you to go to find this new you, right? Freedom is alignment. And man, a guy can get trapped in this paradise. If you don't believe me, look back to that 70s, 80s show, Fantasy Island. It's sort of a cautionary tale. But guys, seriously, just like a man can be free in a small apartment, location is not the issue. The issue is whether you're living the life that is still connected to the man you've become, right? Just like a man can be free in a small one-bedroom apartment, the location's not the issue, right? I think we understand this, or I hope we do as we go through the video here. The issue is whether the life you're living is still connected with the man you've become. All right, guys, this might be the most important thing I say in this entire video. So you might want to pay attention here. Hell, you might even want to grab a pen and some paper. Look, at some point you stopped being your creation and you became your responsibility. Let that sink in, guys. Really sink the fuck in, right? because that's where things change. This sort of excitement starts to disappear. The curiosity that you had as a younger man often disappears. Growth stagnates, or worse, disappears. And now you're stuck managing, protecting, maintaining, sort of servicing. You are living in scarcity, definitely not abundance. And look, responsibility does matter, guys. It matters a lot. I get that. And a lot of you guys have a lot of responsibilities. I'm not sort of minimizing that by any means at all. But look, and I'm not telling you wait to run away from this responsibility or abandon your obligations. Quite the contrary, guys. Responsibility is what's going to give your life meaning. But, here's the but, guys. But responsibility without growth becomes sort of suffocation. That's where many men find themselves. Everything works, yet nothing feels sort of alive. They just don't have that sort of zest for life. They're not building anymore. They're sort of, preserving or persevering. They're just simply existing, not living. And as I said, persevering is not the same thing as living. Look, guys, a museum preserves things. A man, he's supposed to evolve. Guys, one thing I notice as I get older, the more convinced I become of one of the greatest dangers facing men is becoming attached to their own history. You start identifying with who you used to be, that former version of yourself. Remember, guys, how I talked about the sort of glory days in the last video. Guys that sort of reached their peak in high school. They were the high school quarterback and, those type of thing. And they start identifying with their past sort of accolades. The businessman, the husband, the provider, the quote unquote tough guy, the disciplined guy, the successful guy, the sort of expert, the leader, whatever, doesn't really matter. And eventually these identities become your cage, your prison, as I said in the beginning of the video. Because now every change that comes up sort of feels like a threat to this very identity. Every new direction feels like a betrayal to this old version of yourself, like you're not being you, right? And every evolution feels like you're losing a part of yourself. But look, guys, it's not. It's actually the opposite. Growth requires shedding this old skin. Again, you see the snake. Snakes shed their old skin so they can grow. It's an analogy, but it's true, guys. And you can't become someone new while desperately protecting every version you've been. Ego protecting your identity. And that's exactly what most men do. I know I fell victim to this, guys, not just once, but several times. And they spend the second half of their lives defending decisions that were made by a younger version of themselves, the version that didn't know the things they know now. The younger version doesn't know what he knows now, as I just said. And so when you make your decisions now based on who you were, that's kind of insanity if you really think about it. So let me leave you with a question, a poignant question, guys. Not a terribly comfortable question. Guys, I like to make you uncomfortable, but it's an important one. This question is really important. If nobody knew your history, nobody knew your sort of title, what was on your sort of bio, if no one knew your income, if nobody knew your relationship status, if nobody had any idea of what you've accomplished, would you still build the same life you are living right now? Be brutally honest when answering these questions, guys. Or would you build something differently? Because that's where the real answer lives. Guys, look. Most men think the greatest risk in life is failure. As I've said before, it's not. It's not even close, and it's not even close by a wide margin. The greatest risk is becoming so attached to who you've been, this former version of yourself, that you never become who you're capable of becoming. And maybe, guys, just maybe, that the life you built isn't exactly broken, right? But maybe you've simply outgrown it, and I hope you have. And the question isn't whether you're going to admit that. The question is, how many years are you willing to let pass before you do? Guys, the most dangerous prison isn't the one you get locked inside. Yeah, that would kind of suck. But it's the one that you built so well that nobody, including you, realizes that you're trapped. Guys, appreciate y'all. If you haven't subscribed yet, the question is, why not? Here's your chance. Smack that subscribe button. Do me a favor. like, drop the comments, and as always, pass this on to a guy who can use it. We are here in June. It's Mental Health Month. I know a lot of people may not know that, but it is, and it's important. Somebody's struggling, you can use this video or some of the videos I've put out, pass it on to them, and I'd appreciate the guys, and I think they would too. Guys, as always, I got to wrap it up here. I got to get packing, head back to the States. But remember, live deliberately.